Hi, Mrs. Watts again. This is the video for the potato salad that accompanies the mini savoury tarts for this week's cooking challenge for years 7, 8 and 9s, 10s and 11s if they want to. So I'm just going to run through the ingredients really quickly. They are on the recipe sheet. First of all, you're going to need some new potatoes or salad potatoes that have been washed. And I like to just give mine a little scrub just to get any dark skin bits off that maybe you don't want to eat. You're going to also need some grated cheese, so any hard cheese is fine, whichever is your preference. I've bought some ham to put in the potato salad. It's actually from a gammon joint that I cooked yesterday, but this is obviously optional. There is a list of optional ingredients on the recipe sheet, and I've got some spring onions. Now, I like hard-boiled egg in my potato salad too, so I've got 2 eggs that I'm going to boil with the potatoes. I'll take them out halfway through, or after about 10 minutes or so they're not overcooked, because I quite like them sort of just soft-boiled, but just going hard a little bit. Salt and pepper. You need some olive oil. Some mustard. I've got Dijon, but you can use any kind of mustard. Again, this is optional, so if you don't like the flavour of mustard, don't put it in. And then I've got some mayonnaise, and I've just got the Hellmann's light mayonnaise, but any mayonnaise would be fine. Right, so this is the first time I've videoed in my kitchen, so hopefully this will work. I've got a variety of books and things that my camera tripod's on, so hopefully it won't fall over. And first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start to cut the potatoes into even sized pieces. So I'll move the camera down and hopefully you will be able to see exactly what I'm doing. Okay, so I think that works. Right, so when you buy potatoes, they come in a variety of sizes. Okay, if we cooked them all like this, then these ones are going to cook obviously sooner than these ones. So we need to cut them into similar sized pieces. So I'm going to take the smallest potato as my guide, and then using that bridge hold, I'm going to cut the larger potato in half. Now, I'm holding the knife with a nice tight grip. I do have a tendency to put my finger out like this, which if any of you have watched the Savoury Tarts video, you'll notice I do it all the time. And I do say hold the knife like this so you can push down and have a proper angle on the knife rather than just trying to manoeuvre it with that finger. So I've got to sort of think about this potato. Am I going to cut it into 4? Is that going to be too small? I think it might be too small, so I'm going to cut it this way. I'm sort of holding that with the claw grip this time, so you can either use the bridge or the claw, and then I'm going to cut that again. Okay, so it is only a rough size, okay, that you're looking for. This one's about the right size, so is that one. Don't want to cut those anymore. Let me have a look at that one. If I cut that one, this is where you've got to sort of think, okay, so am I going to cut this one in half and then cut these bigger pieces in half again? Or do I cut it once they're cooked? And I'm actually going to cut it once they're cooked because I don't want it to be too small. So I'm just going through my potatoes here. I'm going to cut that one in half. Okay. And I can see now that some of them are a little big. So I just need to cut a few, as I say, when they're cooked. It might be that I need to leave those bigger pieces in just for a few more minutes to cook. Right, I think I'm going to leave that one because it's, even though it's longer, it's quite narrow. Cut that one. Okay, so I'm cutting this. Maybe I should have left that one. That one's a bit brown on the end though, so I'll probably just discard that piece. I'm cooking this for about 4 people, so I'm going to make quite a bit. That one's not too good either. So if you cut your potatoes in half, you can actually see if any of them are not great to use. You might get the odd one or 2. So as I said, I'm cooking this for about 4 people, so I'm using quite a lot of potatoes. And I think the recipe was for 2 people. So if you follow the ingredients on the recipe and then just add as necessary, you don't have to have exactly the right amount. It's not like baking where it is actually a chemical equation and you need the right amount of each ingredient to make it work. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pop these potatoes into my pot. So if I adjust my camera, you'll be able to see my pot here. Okay, I'm going to pop those in. I haven't got any water in here at the moment because if it was on the boil, it would splash up at me as I put the potatoes in. So I'm going to pop them in like that. I've got some water in a jug here. I'm going to pour that over the potatoes, and that's just about covering them. So I'm going to get a little bit more because it will obviously evaporate as it's cooking. Okay, so I'm going to pop a bit more in there to make sure that they're really covered. One thing you don't want to do though is fill the water right up to the top, because as it comes to the boil, it will boil over. So if you leave yourself a good couple of centimetres to catch it, and obviously with a pan on the hob, you can't just leave it unattended, you need to be somewhere near it to keep an eye on it. So we need to put those to boil first. So I'm going to pop my lid part way on, let some of the steam escape, but we're going to want to catch some of the steam inside the pan because that obviously saves energy and helps the water boil quicker. And then we will pop that on the highest gas mark or electric mark, whichever oven you're using, and bring that to the boil. Now, a lot of you don't know when something is boiling. I get asked that quite an awful lot. And what you actually want to see is not just ripples on the water, but you need to see what's called the rolling boil, and that's when the water seems to be rolling around inside the pan. When that happens, you need to turn it down to number 3, about halfway, 2 to 3, and let the water simmer. Now, a simmer is when the water is just moving on the top of the water, but not actually a rolling boil. So we'll leave that now to boil. It's probably going to take about 5 minutes or so to come to the boil in this pot because it retains the heat quite a lot of time, but your pots might take a bit longer. I'll see you in a minute. Okay, so my potatoes have been boiling for around about 7 minutes now. So I'm going to add the egg, but I'm not just going to pop them in the hot water. I'm going to lower them using one of these, a slotted spoon. If you haven't got a slotted spoon, then just use a large spoon. So let me move the camera and you'll be able to see what I'm doing again. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to take the lid off my pan. Okay, and you can see quite clearly that that water is on a rolling boil. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is turn that right down to simmer, okay, to number 2. Now you might see around the edge of your pan here, some of the skin might have come away from the new potatoes. That's perfectly normal, don't worry about it. So next thing, pop your egg on your spoon and gently lower it into the water. This is if you're using eggs. Remember, this is an optional ingredient. Okay, and then I'm going to just test those potatoes by grabbing a fork, and I'm just going to see, they should be starting to soften up. Yeah, they are. Okay, so they're going to need to cook for a little while longer. So if I leave those in for about another 7 minutes or so, those eggs will be nicely hard boiled. We don't want to overboil the eggs, but we don't want them too runny that when you chop them up all the yolk runs out. So I'm going to leave the lid off now, just to allow it to simmer. If I put the lid back on, it's going to raise the temperature in the pan, and it's likely that that water will come to the boil again, which will be too hot. So we're now going to have a little look at the spring onion. A spring onion is something I always get asked, how do we chop? And if you are using spring onions and you're not quite sure how to chop it, then what you need to do is just watch the beginning of the savoury tarts video where I have demonstrated it. But if we have a look at a spring onion, I get one out of my fridge. Okay, you'll see that this here is the root end and you want to cut that off. So just cut it to here, okay? And then have a look at the leaves, discard any leaves that you don't want to use, take off this outer peeling, give it a good wash, and then just chop it up using the bridge and the claw method into small pieces. But as I say, if you want to actually see me do that, I have demonstrated at the start of the video for the savoury tarts. Okay, so the potatoes and egg have been boiling now for a further 7 minutes, and I've just checked them with a fork again, and they are soft enough to come out. So I'm going to turn the hob off, move the camera down, and you can watch what you need to do next. Okay, I'll leave it positioned like this so you can see my 2 pans here. So rather than moving this heavy pan full of water, which is quite dangerous in the kitchen, then I'm going to use my slotted spoon to actually just, first of all, bring out the eggs. And I'm going to pop those onto my board. My board's got a nice little cutout in it here. You can probably see if I move my board along. There we go, where I can place my eggs so they won't actually roll off the board and onto the floor. So I'll take the second one out. Let it drain well before you move it because they're very hot. Okay, and then I'm going to use the slotted spoon, okay, to take out some of the potatoes. Now we've got those larger potatoes in here that I need to check to see whether they've cooked enough. So I'm just going to pop a fork in them now, and they seem okay actually. So I'm going to leave them as they are, not going to cook them any longer. I will cut them in half again once they've cooled. And this bit here is actually just a little bit of the egg that's come out. It's one of the shells have cracked, so don't worry about that. Okay, just drain those. You've got to leave these potatoes to cool. You can run them under some cold water to help them on their way. Okay. Okay, so sorry about that, my video recording stopped. So you've just seen me take the potatoes out of the water, and before I realised that the camera had stopped recording, I've just peeled my 2 eggs that have cooled down a little bit. So I'm going to chop those up now and just pop them back in that bowl. So again, just using the bridge technique, you can see that I've just cut it in half and it's just nicely cooked in the centre. And I'm just going to rough chop these, so just use a loose claw, just keeping your fingers tucked in, and chop them up. Do the same for the other one. It's up to you. If you like chunky egg in your potato salad, you can make it chunky. I like it quite small, so I'm going to chop this quite small. And then I'll chop the other one up too. Again, nicely cooked. I'll just chop that up quite small. Keeping your fingers out of the way, as I say. Okay. If you're really careful, you can use the knife to pop this back in here, but make sure your fingers are not anywhere near the blade. Okay. So we've got our egg chopped. So what we need to do now is get a bowl to mix everything together. So I'll get rid of this. Give my hands a little wipe. And I've got my bowl here that I'm going to make my dressing in. So I'm going to pop some mayonnaise in the bottom. And I'm also going to pop some olive oil in. And this will just loosen up the mayonnaise. Pop my teaspoon of Dijon mustard in here also. You can always add more, remember, so don't go too mad with the mustard. I'm going to pop my spring onions in. And my ham. My egg. Okay. Bring my potatoes back, which have cooled down enough now, and my chopping board. Put my bowl over there. And I'm just going to cut these into quite big chunks, just in half again. And you should be able to tell that they're nicely soft. Leave the smaller ones whole if you want, if you've got really tiny potatoes. Pop them in there. I'll just quickly chop them. Don't have to be too particular about this. Big one I'm going to chop in half again. And this one, I should have used a bigger bowl, shouldn't I? Okay, we'll cut those 2 in half. And then, so I've got all my potatoes in my bowl with my dressing. So what I'm going to do next is, just with a large spatula, I'm just going to move them around gently. And I'm literally pulling up from the bottom up to the top, just to give it a mix. Now, I didn't put too much mayonnaise and olive oil in initially because I know I'm going to add some more now. So I'm going to put a little bit more on, a little bit more olive oil. And at this point, I'm going to add my salt and pepper. Okay, and also my cheese. Mix that all round again. Really should have used a bigger bowl. Okay, and then of course you want to taste it. You need to see whether you need more mustard, more mayonnaise, more olive oil. I think I need a bit more olive oil on this. Okay, because I prefer more olive oil than mayonnaise. Give it another mix and then I'll have a taste. So let me grab a spoon and I'm just going to taste one of the potatoes. Now that's perfect, apart from a little bit more salt and pepper for me. Okay, another little turn around in the bowl. Now obviously this looks quite messy, so we're going to serve it in a nice bowl. Okay, I'll just go and grab one. We'll have a little wipe down. Let's get rid of this board, put my bowl there. Grab another big spoon. I'm just going to scoop up some of the potato salad, if you can see that there, and just nicely pop it into the centre. Okay, when we do food in year 10 and 11, we learn more about presenting food, but it's always good practice, especially if you're taking photographs, to have a nice clean plate. Okay, now if you're not using egg, you might want to give the potato salad a bit of a tang and squeeze some lemon juice over. That's always quite a nice, refreshing flavour. Okay, so move this out of the way, have a little wipe down, and there you have your potato salad. Okay, so I hope that worked out okay in my kitchen. Okay, first time's always a little difficult, but hopefully you'll have a go at making all of the videos that I do, and send me your pictures as usual to my email vwatts@5acres highschool.co.uk. I'll see you next week. Bye.